Let's start by first tell us a little bit about, give us the thumbnail of what Total Wine is as a company, and then let's talk a little bit about what role email plays in that process.
Sure. So Total Wine & More is a wine, beer, and spirits retailer. Our footprint is pretty big. Our stores are around 40 to 45,000 square feet. So if you haven't been in one, picture the experience of kind of walking into what is about the size of a grocery store, and instead of a bread aisle, we have a Bordeaux aisle. And instead of chips and snacks, we have aisles and aisles dedicated to different types of small batch bourbons and scotches.
You just woke them up.
Yeah, everyone's awake now.
Aisles and aisles of Bordeaux.
Yeah, exactly.
And generally, what role does email have in your communications with customers, and what are the principal goals that you have in communicating?
So email is really important to us at Total Wine. It's this direct link that we have to a lot of our customers, especially our most loyal customers who sign up for our loyalty and our rewards programs. And we use it as a great outlet to just build relationships and build value over time with our customers to make sure that they're really getting the most out of the in-store experience, our website experience, our mobile app experience. Yeah.
Actually, let's switch places so you get in the light and I go in the shadow.
You bet.
They want to see you, and you'll be closer to the slides. So let's talk about what we're going to walk through today. We want to touch on 3 or 4 main points.
I'm falling into that trap of pointing it at the screen. That's not going to work if I point it at the screen. Oh, and there's a little delay. There we go. So we kind of named this session A Toast to Simplicity. I think that there's really something quite liberating and empowering about just taking a step back and thinking about the fundamentals of email marketing, right? We have these daunting expectations of us. There are these huge mountains of data in front of us, similar to what Steve was talking about earlier. And we have this expectation of ourselves that we need to be doing something with all of the data, right? And we need to be layering in AI and machine learning and getting our data scientists on it. And that's incredibly daunting. If we just give ourselves permission, let ourselves off the hook for a minute, give ourselves permission to think about email marketing in very simple terms. If we get these fundamentals right, then when we do these lofty things with AI and interactive email, we're going to get a lot more value out of those. But also, if we think about this in simpler terms, the path forward with those is going to be much easier on us as well. That will illuminate the path for us. So we're going to talk about how email at its core is just one-to-one conversation between humans. And we'll talk more about each of those components of that definition there. Each email that we send is its own conversion funnel. When we send an email to somebody, we're doing a good job with list segmentation and personalization, right? We sent it to that person for a reason with a specific goal. So it's a conversion funnel. And marketers are really good at optimizing funnels, right? That's one of the things that we do best. So if we think about that and just optimizing that funnel, we're going to be off to a great start. This third tenet is really important. That's that we're here to provide value to the subscriber, not the other way around. And if we think about email marketing through that lens, then that's really going to help us make, with every decision that comes across our desk, it's going to help us make the right customer first and customer-centric decision. And what I have found in my years in email marketing is that the more we foster that relationship and we add value there, the more value they're going to bring to the relationship as well. So it is going to be win-win. It's not that we're not focused on ROI or we don't care about money, but the more value that we bring to the subscriber, the more value they bring to us, and it's a great relationship. The final thing that we can never forget is that email is different from other channels. It is permission-based. And at any point, the subscriber can rescind that invitation. They've invited us to a very special place in their inbox, and we kind of need to show them the reverence that that deserves. Otherwise, they're going to just take it away. So really, email is about building relationships.
Let's start with the first point, because this interests me. When we use the metaphor of conversation with a technology like email, it really does raise the question of what we really mean by it, because most email conversation means they're talking at me. And I think penetrating and really unwrapping that idea of what a conversation is in email and taking that term seriously, I think has implications. So tell me what that really means to you and how you actually break it down and make that idea come to life in an email.
Sure. So for me, thinking about conversation as email, right, is that brands do a lot of talking. We're really good about talking about ourselves. And with email marketing, we need to just like any conversation, you need to listen as much as you do talk. And then when you talk back to them, you need to say something relevant. Actually show that you were listening, not that you just are, a one-way conversation. So I have this quote here, who I honestly have no idea who to attribute it to. I definitely know it's not me, and so I've done it to anonymous, but if you know the person who said it, shout it out. That marketing emails are like a first date. If you spend the whole time talking about yourself, there won't be another one, right? So we really need to honor that and have this conversation with our customers and listen. And there's a lot of things that we can listen for. It doesn't necessarily have to be getting data engineers to get a bunch of data pointed into our ESP. There's a ton of native data that already lives in our ESP. We can pay attention to what emails they're opening, what links are they clicking. There's lots of easy shortcuts. When you think about most of the websites that you guys are driving traffic to, the link structure in those is probably a taxonomy that tells you a lot. So for instance, I can just easily query anyone who clicked a link that had the word Merlot in it in the last week, right? And now I've got a list segment of people who I know are currently interested in Merlot.
Let's walk through an example of what you learned about conversation, when it works and when it doesn't work.
So here's an example of one where we just got so excited about ourselves that we were just talking and not doing the listening, right? So in January, we launched a brand new Total Wine & More mobile app. It's very awesome. I encourage you guys to go download it and check it out. But we were so excited about our mobile app that we thought that if we just say, hey, customers, announcing our new mobile app, that they would be excited about it too. And there was a good number of customers who were excited just to see what was the Total Wine & More mobile app experience like. But we were talking about ourselves. This was a very customer-centric way a very company-centric way to talk about this. And we weren't thrilled with the email. We didn't think it was amazing. And we definitely weren't thrilled with the performance of it. So when we had a second chance at this and said, okay, what would we do differently this time? How can we do a better job of listening to the customer and saying something back that's relevant? And thinking about personalization in the sense of stop interrupting what they're interested in and start talking about what they're interested in. And that's a very simple way to think about personalization, but it's approachable. So
you're saying things that my wife tells me all the time.
Yeah. So we took the email and we said, well, we're saying we have 6 value propositions of the mobile app here. We just kind of listed all the features. We need to talk about this in a way that the customer is interested in. So we looked at a lot of our segments and we said, well, we know we have this customer segment here. When we listen, they say, we like great wine, but we love a great deal. So
where were you listening, by the way? What are the listening channels that you're using to inform this set of choices?
So some of that is that native data in our ESP that I talked about. How many of them have opened emails where we had the word coupon in the subject line, right? Like that's an easy way to get at that. That is very approachable for everybody. You don't need data engineers for that. That's in your ESP already. It's native. You can look at transaction data. That's all going to be there as well. How many people have redeemed a coupon? So when we sent this email to them, we said, well, let's just change. It's the same email, really. It is. There's not much changed about this at all. We said, let's change the subject line from announcing our new mobile app to never miss a deal again, download our app. We took that one value proposition, that feature in the app that we thought would resonate with them the most, and we stopped interrupting what they were interested in, started talking about what they were interested in. And when we did that, we got a 58% increase in our click over deliver just by changing that subject line and bringing that into the subheader there as well.
So you don't need focus groups to do this. You were able simply to understand, use the data that you had on hand that was already available to get this different lens on the customer.
That's absolutely right. It was just a matter of stepping back and saying, email is a conversation. We talk, they listen, they say something back, and we listen. And we should say something back in response. The next thing that we want to talk about should be relevant to them because they've told us what they're interested in. Yep.
Okay, let's talk about how the email itself maintains its relevance and maintains that continuity from top to bottom.
Yeah, so this goes back to that second tenet that I talked about, right? That every email we send is a conversion funnel. We sent it to a subscriber for a reason. There was a specific goal for that email. And as marketers, we can be really good at optimizing it. And so if you look at the left-hand column here, I just have a few bullet points of what makes for a good funnel is to have a clear goal for the email, right? As email marketers, I think we often fall into a trap of we're told the goal of an email is sales, right? Just sales dollars. That's not a very specific goal. To get more specific is sell this type of wine or bring in lapsed customers into the store, right? Those are specific goals that you can optimize a funnel around. The second thing is Once you know that goal, think about what the value proposition is for the customer and make sure that is as clear as possible in the email, and to bring that throughout the entire conversion funnel, all the way up to the subject line, so that you're sending a signal to your customers of this email is for you. I've been specific. You can self-segment in or out, and you know what you're getting when you open the email.
Each email is a story. Each email is a narrative. It should have, like any good narrative, a beginning, middle, and an end, and an overall coherence.
That's right. And again, going to the next bullet, minimizing exits, right? When we think about optimization of something, an exit is anything, any way that that subscriber could leave the email without doing your CTA. And there are a number of things that they could do. And we as email marketers probably have, I mean, you count the hrefs, right? Count how many things link out in your email that aren't your primary CTA. It's probably a lot. Most of you probably have half a dozen, maybe a dozen. I know we have a lot in our email. And if we followed rule number 3 there, we're being very clear about the value proposition in the subject line, then also the customer opened that email for a reason. They had intent when they opened, and I'll show an example of that in a minute. But if we distract them with things other than their intent, then we're also kind of failing them a little bit too. And that's a very purist approach, but if they click on anything other than your CTA, you kind of failed with the goal of that email.
How are you optimizing, by the way? What are the ways in which let's look at this funnel and drill into it a little bit. What are you using to know that you're really optimizing that funnel? Is it simply that is it the conversion metric, or are there other things that are cueing it?
Sure, it's going to be conversion metric, right? As close to the conversion as you can get with your tracking, that's what you want to be looking at. And sometimes when we send an email, it's just going to be click. Sometimes when we send an email, we are going to have that all the way to conversion. A lot of times we have much longer buying cycles and we're just looking for engagement. But as I start with this funnel, as we think about these things, it's really just the subscriber experience, right? Someone decides they're going to check their email, they pull out their phone, they go to their inbox, they see 6 emails at a time, they're scrolling quickly with their thumb, right? And they're going to see the sender, they're going to see the subject line, they see the pre-header text. And I've heard a lot of people in this room talk about this before, right? This is the concept of the mini sell or the mini yes, that each one of these items is a chance for your subscriber to say yes or no. And as they go through that experience, they open the email, they get through to the landing page, or they get through to your store to convert. I'm looking for a yes at every stage. And I don't really want a lot of yeses at open if they're going to say no at click or convert, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we think about optimizing that funnel, the best way that we can do that is it's not about how many people can I get to open my email. It's how many people can I get to open my email that are likely to convert. And I have seen pretty much every A/B test I've ever done on this has been, we optimize this all the time. It is okay to lose on open rate if you're going to win on conversion rate. And many, many A/B tests I see do that very, very well.
And you're also keeping the structure, again, to go back to the simplicity theme, you're keeping the structure fairly simple and uncluttered. So when you're doing your A/B testing, there really are a fairly limited number of things to swap in and out to test for.
Yeah, that's
so
absolutely
that
right.
optimization becomes pretty clear.
Mm-hmm. And the simpler you keep that, the easier it's going to be to optimize. So I wanted to put up an example of how we followed a lot. Here's an example where we followed a lot of these rules really well, right? We have one conversion funnel here. We're doing some things really well. We identified the goal of this email is to sell rosé. We brought that in. The value proposition here is, we've got great rosé wine. You can save 15% right now on this flash sale. We brought that into the subject line. The subject line was save 15% off Winery Direct Rosé. The people who opened this email were definitely opening with the intent to shop rosé at 15% off, right? I put that in the subject line. That's why they opened the email. But here I also have these other goals, right? Because we're marketers. We always have 10 goals that we're trying to work toward at any one time. And so this is where we missed a little bit probably with adding exits, right? We're actually distracting the customer in this example with things that we know they did not open this email with the intent to come to this Scotch event, right? This customer base actually opened because they were interested in rosé. They didn't open the email to come and see the speaker at one of our stores, right? How do we deal with this as email marketers? Because I know that we are all being asked to accomplish a ton of goals at the same time. And I think the approach that I've adopted that has worked very well is with every new thing that I'm asked to include in an email, we just ask the question, is this part of the conversion funnel? I had this one goal. Is this is this new thing you're asking me about part of this conversion funnel? And sometimes it is, right? If it is, maybe they're asking me about free shipping. Yeah, I can add something about free shipping to this. Buy in the next 3 days and get free shipping on blah, 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 right? That's part of the conversion funnel, but we should lift it up and put it in the conversion funnel where it belongs, which is probably right below the value proposition and right above the CTA. But if it's not part of the conversion funnel, like this Scotch event, then it shouldn't be in this email. It's an exit, and it should probably get its own email, and it should probably go to people who are interested in Scotch.
Are the metrics proving this out? I mean, are you finding that when you start eliminating those possible exits, you're getting better performance on the core value proposition?
Absolutely, yeah. Every test that I've done on this has been, it's partly, yeah, there's not exits for them to leave through, but part of it is that we're reducing the friction of them finding the CTA that they came into the email to accomplish. They had a goal when they opened this email, which was to shop rosé. And now it's a lower friction experience if we take out those exits.
And again, to reiterate, it's a simple theme, but it's important. Storytelling matters. Maintaining focus, simplicity, and a narrative line actually has an impact on how people are interacting with what you're sending them.
That's exactly right. So I wanted to do one more example to really drive this home. This was a fantastic email we put together. Huge group effort. We sent this around as part of our holiday campaign. It involved some editorial folks, some photographers who put together a great photo shoot on these cocktails, a web team that put together shoppable recipes so that we can combine this inspiration and shopping within the same flow. And so here we are, we had these goals, but we also had some secondary goals here. We wanted to make it more convenient, so you can see we had kind of added a banner here announcing we had a new location, which we have lots of new locations as a growing company. Last year we opened a new store every 2 weeks, so we're in hyper growth mode. We always want to let our customers know when there's a new location to make it a little bit easier for them to come into the store. But in this sense, you look at our subject line, holiday cocktails to keep the party going. That's what the customers, that's the value proposition, right? We did a good job there. That's what the customers are opening this email to get. And then we're layering in these extra exits, these extra goals, and that makes it very hard to optimize that conversion funnel when we have so many goals. And the second one there, which is obviously important, is that we want to help them with their gift giving during the holiday season. So we're letting them know we have gift cards. But really, the theme of this email was entertaining, and we want to help them entertain this holiday season. And then we're kind of mixing and matching and bringing in multiple stories, and that gets distracting. That's not why they opened the email.
Mm-hmm. Let's pull back and start thinking more strategically about this idea of how all of this adds up to conversations and building brand and building, and actually, again, to use another metaphor, we like folding on to this, but don't always mean or don't always penetrate the implications of it, but use actually building a relationship with customers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So building relationships is part of what email marketing is really all about. I think it's very good at it. You have this one-to-one, you know who this customer is, you start to learn a lot about them, you communicate with them very regularly, and hopefully they're communicating back to you regularly and you're listening to that. But, I say this all the time with my team, partly to take the stress off and let ourselves off the hook a little bit again, but email marketing is not about any one email. There's no one email that I'm going to send that's going to make or break our email program, right? It's about the impression, the relationship that we build over time by sending good emails and listening and having those conversations with our customers. So it's about those relationships. And one of the things that I have run into throughout my career, and I know I've heard a lot of talk about this in the room and some of the roundtables, is sometimes it's the KPIs are the problem, right? The KPIs that we're judged by or that we assign to our team are really that's the lens through which they make their decisions, right? If you're gonna judge them on open rate or how much money did the send you sent yesterday make, then they're gonna make decisions to maximize the money from that send yesterday. And that's not always best for the customer experience. That's not always best for lifetime value. So if we pivot those and just pick some other KPIs that maybe favor the longer view. So I've listed a couple here that can kind of be swapped out, is instead of sales per send, if we think about a lifetime value, 30-day, 90-day lifetime value, whatever makes sense for our buying cycle, then it's now no longer how much money did the email you sent yesterday make. It's on a monthly basis, on a 90-day basis, how much money is this program going to be generating for us? And that forces people into making decisions that value a longer view and value that relationship. A little bit farther up the funnel, a lot of us are also just focused on open rate, right? How many customers opened the email that we sent today? Well, there are a lot of games that I can play to get my open rate up today, but that might not necessarily be great for the longer view. And you don't really have, if you're just focused on open rate, my average open rate is 20%. That's not true, I'm just saying that. Let's say it's 20%. And does that mean that I have 1 in 5 of my customers open every email that I send? Or 100% of my customers are opening, but they only open 1 in 5 emails? It's probably somewhere in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. And just focusing on open rate doesn't tell that story at all of list churn or engagement over time. And so instead of thinking about that, what if we think about monthly active openers, right? That's how many of your customers have opened at least 1 email in the last month or at least 1 email in the last quarter. Let's think about that as a ratio of our full send list size, right? That gives you a better idea of engagement over time and how good of a job you're doing building those relationships. And if you're thinking about it in that sense, that does change the decisions you make when you're pressing send on an email.
I have a couple of last broad questions to ask Bart, but before I do, I want to see if anybody has a question. How are you selling this internally?
That's a good question. The numbers. I think the answer always comes back to that with showing the numbers. Over a short period of time, it's very difficult to talk about lifetime value, right? But you find a balance in the middle. It's very easy to sell people on talking about things in a customer-first way. These are actually not concepts that have been very controversial in any company I've ever worked at. Yeah.
Let me pull back a question I've asked before this week about the broader email experience that a consumer has with you. When you're thinking about the many emails they're seeing across, say, that month that you're measuring opens. What is that broad experience you're trying to build, and how are you measuring that in terms of, because that's what sets expectations, right, and trust over time, is that is the ways in which they see an email and they have a certain set of expectations. And I'm curious about if you're building sort of a broad narrative of Total Wine with the customer through the email channel.
Sure. So, sorry, is the question, what am I looking at for success there?
Well, how you're defining it. What overall experience do you want them to have? Set of expectations, and then how you're measuring it.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that actually comes to this first one, this first bullet here on kind of ending this with the idea of a toast to the customer, is that we're here as email marketers to provide value to them, not the other way around. So our job really is to make sure that they're getting the most value and the best experience out of our app, our website, our stores, and the most direct proxy that we have to that is, well, how frequently are they coming into our stores? How frequently are they going to our website? Do they look to us as a thought leader in our space of when they want to learn about the difference between left bank and right bank Bordeaux, or why is this scotch so peaty? Like, those questions that they get into as they start to explore. Are they coming to us for those answers, and are they coming to us to do that exploration? Okay.
Well, and then let's talk about, I know a point that's near and dear to your heart is understanding, really appreciating how email is a distinct channel, and we need to treat it that way.
It is. This is incredibly important for us as email marketers. It's not TV. It's not display. It's not SEM. We cannot just pay money to get inside the inbox in front of these people. They've invited us into a very personal place on their phone, or at work, if they're checking their email at work. And it's important that we show the reverence there, because when you think about the waterfall of here's your list size and your list growth, and where are you losing your list to? Because you do have churn, right? We're all going to have list churn. The number of people who actually unsubscribe is going to be low, right? There's a reason your unsubscribe rate is 0.03% or whatever it is, right? That's not because only 0.03% of the customers or subscribers on your list are unhappy with the content. It's just because most of the people who are unhappy are going to be so passive, they're just going to ignore you and give you the cold shoulder, and they're going to stop opening your emails entirely, right? That's where most of it's going to go. So it's really important to focus on those metrics like monthly active openers and things like that to tell that story of what % of my list is actually just completely unengaged with me. And that's where we're going to lose them to. And we have to show that relationship the reverence that it deserves to keep that going and to keep that up.
Bart,
Steve?
Yeah, we have a question.
Good question back here,
Cool.
if you like. Take it away, sir.
It's Della from Alchemy Works. I told you I'd make it.
Hello, Della.
Great presentation, thank you. You touched on a KPI that I actually believe is probably the most important one ever, which is how many people opened your email at least once in the period, right? Call that open reach. And I think that revenue tracks that number closer than any other number that you could ever look at. Would you kind of agree with that? The number of people who open once in a period, a quarter, a month, a year, whatever it is, that percentage of the database that's active is a very, very important number.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. You said you guys call it
open reach.
Open reach. Yeah.
Open reach.
I think that's a great word for it, because that really is the question of, that's way more important than send list size, for instance, right? A lot of people are very focused on list size. Doesn't matter how big your list is if no one's opening your emails over a given period. So that really is going to be the definition of your reach.
So what tends to surprise people, that the number's only one, because there's a tendency to think that your revenue will track the people who open 5 times. So getting everyone to open 5 times is better than opening once. I have never found that to be the case, and it's surprising how few opens a period you need to raise your revenue, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because you're tracking that metric.
Yeah, you bet. So I don't think that anybody in this room is going to look at their list and see you're going to have really active openers who never spend any money with you. You know, we're going to have that too. I think every brand is going to have that, especially if you're doing a really good job with engagement and getting content out there. The answer is, and I think this is what you're saying, you see, is to look at the data and see like how valuable is that customer who only opens once a month. If that customer is only going to open once a month and they see that 20% off $200 or something coupon in their inbox, and then they go use that once a month, that's going to be a really valuable thing for your business. And there's probably a decent portion of your list who does engage with you that way. Yeah. So exactly. The answer is going to be in the data, but just maintaining that relationship and that one touch point with the customer, if they're willing to talk with you in the email box once a month, that's a great thing. Yeah.
Bart, again, thank you very much, Bart. Thank